Thank you for checking out A1 Math, and today we're looking at comparing properties of linear functions. In this particular example, we're looking at a word problem and comparing it to an actual graph for these functions. So we're going to interpret the word problem and write a linear function, and then we're going to interpret the graph and write another linear function. Take a look at all of their domains, slopes, and y-intercepts and compare the two. So let's get started. So in this example, it says Jeff is an electrician and had a job that lasted 5.5 hours, during which time he earned $32 per hour and charged $25 service fee. The function J of T represents the amount Jeff earns in T hours. So they want to know for every hour he works, how much money is he making? So we're going to write the function for that. Then it says Brandon also works as an electrician. The graph BT shows the amount in dollars that Brendan earns as a function of T time in hours. So I'm going to show you the graph in just a second. But first, I want to write out the linear equation. And you always usually start with y is equal to mx plus b, where you plug in an x and you get a y. But instead of using y, I'm going to use the actual notation here, J of t. And I'm going to plug in the slope. Well, the slope is going to be 32 per hour. So that's going to be 32 x. Instead of using x, I'm going to use the t time plus the initial fee, which is 25. So this is the equation that I want to use. Okay, I have my slope 32, my y-intercept 25 for the initial fee, and this is for the function for Jeff here. So on this next slide, I've made a table. And I've already got the rule or the equation for Jeff, and I'm going to write that out. So that's going to be J of T is equal to 32 T plus 25. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and write the domain and the range. Okay, now that we have the equation written out, what we want to do is to find the domain. Well, the domain is given to us in the word problem here. Okay, it says that he had a job that lasted 5.5 hours. So it started at 0 and went to 5.5. So the domain is going to be from 0 to 5.5. Okay, so that's the domain. The range is how much money would he make if he worked 0 hours or all the way up to 5.5 hours. So what you would do there is plug both of those into the equation. When you plug in 0, you get 25. And when you plug in 5.5 hours, you get 201. So its range is going to be from 25 to 201. So the range is from 25 to 201. Now we're going to write the slope and the y-intercept. Well, the slope is 32 and the y-intercept is 25. Now we're going to do the same thing for the next electrician, but he is on the graph here. And in order to do that, we have the y-intercept where it crosses the y-axis. When x is 0, that's 40. But what we need is the slope so we can write the equation. So in order to do that, what we want to do is take our point here, and I'm going to change the color on that. And write it down here. We're going to write y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay? And take this first point and take the y minus that y, 40. And do 4 minus 0. No. Alright, so when we do 160 minus 40, we end up with 120. And we'll divide that by 4. we end up with 30. So our slope on the graph here is 30. So to write our equation is going to be b of t is equal to our slope, which is 30, t, plus our y-intercept, which is 40. So evidently he has a $40 fee and charges $30 per hour. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is find the domain and the range. So we're going to start with the domain. Well, the domain goes from 0 all the way to 4, because that's where the graph goes. So it's from 0 as far left as it goes, far right is 4. So it's going to be 0 to 4. That's the domain. And then the range is how low it goes, which is 40, all the way to how high it goes, which is 160. So it's from 40 to 160. And the slope, which is 30, and the y-intercept, which is 40. So now we can compare the two here. So uh, it looks like in the first job here, he works more hours, with 5.5, and he made 4. Um, but it looks like he made more money. Uh, in the JT function here, his initial fee is lower, but his per hour rate is more. Okay, so this is what you could do with these functions. You take a look and you can compare them to each other. Now, take a look at number 10 here and see if you could do the same thing. Write out the rule, write out the domain, the range, the slope, the y-intercept, and then compare the two. Since it's giving it to you in dollars, uh, go ahead and change your slope into actual dollars. Some change. In other words, use a decimal instead of a fraction. So you can go ahead and pause the video right here. Okay, so once you solve it, you should get something like this. All right, now that's comparing properties of a linear function between a word problem or in context with a graph. I want to thank you for checking out A1 Math and have a nice day.